people will still not believe it because it's never been reported.
Welcome back to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm so excited to be back. This is our first episode back officially after our summer break. So thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm really excited to share this episode with you. I recorded it back in June and wanted to share it immediately because I felt this was so important for people to really hear this information, especially if, number one, maybe you're a former athlete and you experience things like depression or brain fog. You just don't feel like your brain really works as well anymore, or you have children, teens that are playing sports, maybe even grandkids. This is a really important episode because we are really learning how these sports can impact the brain, which has multiple downstream effects. And the story today is quite compelling. I hope that you will listen to it, share it, especially if you have friends or family members who, again, have young kids playing sports or teenagers playing sports, or perhaps a former athlete that is now experiencing issues. This is going to be a really helpful episode. Now, if you do want to check out Vielight, you can use code SarahK there for savings. I will put that link down in the show notes for you so you can check out what we're talking about, the device that he did use in this episode. And one more quick note before we jump into today's episode. August the 24th, which is a Monday, next Monday, if you're listening to this live, I am launching Blueprint Coaching, which is the coaching program I only open a few times a year. As of the date I'm putting this out, we only have a couple of spots left. So if you have really been wanting to dive deeper beyond the podcast and a lot of my free content and really work with me, get my personal help on and support that includes 17 calls, a personalized plan, and so much more, head down to the show notes. I have a couple things. Number one, the free info session that's going to take you behind the scenes and show you everything that you're going to get. And then the sign up link. If you just know already this is what you want to do and you've maybe been putting it off, this is your sign to come and join us starting on August 24th for Blueprint. All those links will be down in the show notes for you. And I'm so excited to be back filming these episodes.
Welcome to the Evolving Wellness Podcast, where
that
circadian
I know
biology
you're going
and
to
quantum
enjoy.
biology meet
Thanks again for listening.
Lifestyle, hormones, health, and everyday conversations. I'm your host, Sarah, board certified in applied quantum biology by the American Naturopathic Medical Board and certified in nutrition by the National Academy of Sports Medicine. This is just a quick little reminder that you'll never hear a guest on this podcast whose every stance I agree with. And that's the point. These are conversations and not consultations. The information shared here is for information and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the guidance of a qualified, trusted professional for all of your personal health needs. If you want more of my content, including my free long-form articles with citations, free ebooks, membership group with more access to me and my circadian app that helps you integrate light into your life seamlessly, make sure to visit www.sarahkleinerwellness.com. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm really excited about today's guest because I know a lot of you have teenagers, young children, even grandkids that are in sports. And Larry is doing a lot of really wonderful research and work around head injuries and how we support our kids that are playing these sports. So Larry, thank you for taking the time out today to talk with me.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, let's maybe start with your story and why this is maybe so personal to you.
Well, let me give you kind of the Reader's Digest version. I started playing tackle football when I was about 10 and played through Pop Warner, high school, college, played a couple of years of professional, and was very successful. I'm in the BYU Hall of Fame. I still have tackle records that haven't been broken, which I don't boast of that, but it's a example of how many hits I had. I very active player, and I was kind of small, significantly small by today's standards. So I kind of took a beating in playing, And after I played a couple of years professionally, I returned to BYU and finished my degrees and ended up getting a PhD in physiology and exercise physiology. And I was really interested in performance and the way and how we can improve performance, how we can maximize performance. And so at that point, I was a college professor for several years, and I consulted with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Detroit Lions in this field. And this was a long time ago. This is way back in the 1980s. And we had some pretty interesting theories and philosophies that they found interesting. And so I went that route for a few years. But after about 10 years of being a professor, things started happening to me. I started to become unusually anxious, paranoid, and distrustful, nervous, things that never had bothered me before. And it was very gradual. It was a gradual acceleration of these symptoms until about 15 years ago, it really hit me hard. And I went down to the point where I really just wanted to leave this earth because it was so destructive and the weird thing about it, the interesting thing about this is that you know what's happening. I knew that I was upsetting my wife. I knew that she didn't like what I was doing. And it bothered me that I was acting like this, but it didn't seem like there was any kind of control I had over it. And so I was really in a bad place. That's about 15 years ago. Fast forward to about 2016, and my wife and I, and since I was diagnosed with significant brain damage in 2010, I had been on kind of a quest to find out what was going on in this field. Because, I mean, you go back to Mike Webster and concussion and those, and the NFL and the college football had known about the risks of brain injury in that sport for a long time. But they didn't have any answers for it. So they just tried to make better helmets and change rules, but that didn't change the collisions, and it didn't change the acceleration events which cause the brain to rattle around in the brain. So as long as you're playing the sport of football or whatever kind of sport, flag football, is when you're colliding and when you're trying to prevent one person from going in the opposite direction that you want to go in, that's going to cause that brain to rattle around. And tackle football in college and professional, that's just kind of the epitome of that model. And that's where you find most of the problems. So anyways, fast forward to about 2016, my wife and I found ourselves in Boston for an extended period of time. And things were getting really bad. We were not getting along. It was all my fault. I was being really hard to live with. She felt like she was walking on eggshells. I knew that Ann McKee, who is, like I told you, one of the top researchers in CTE, she's at Boston University. So we called up Ann. We actually emailed Ann, and she's a very gracious person. She met with us in her office. She said, I don't deal with live people much. I just deal with the brains. But what you are telling me sounds very consistent with what the families relate to me. So at that point in time, she said, we really don't have anything for you. I guess we could refer you for medication, and I didn't want to take medication. She recommended lifestyle changes. I had a good lifestyle. I got a PhD in exercise physiology, so I ate right. I exercised. I've always exercised. I didn't take in drugs. I didn't take alcohol. I had a clean lifestyle. And so that wasn't the issue. I was still progressing in a very negative direction. Mm-hmm. So we left her office discouraged, came back. About 3 weeks later, we had a big blow up. And so I emailed Ann again, and I said, please, you got to have something. Isn't there anything out here? People are killing themselves.
Yeah.
And so she said, well, I have a colleague at the VA that's doing research using near-infrared light on Gulf War veterans suffering from Gulf War illness, and she's having some success. Does that sound like something you'd be interested in? And I wrote back, well, if she's having success, yes, of course I would be. But I'd never heard of it. I wasn't familiar with that. Although it's been around for 30, 40 years, military's been using it. But it's been validated over and over and over again. So she referred me to her colleague. I went to the VA. We met the physiology, the process that she described sounded reasonable to me. I wanted to believe it, but I didn't really know much about it. So that's when I entered into her study as the first football player with potential CTE to be treated with this mechanism, with this near light. So I underwent significant testing, had an MRI, but the research was kind of three parts. I went on to the light, active light, for 6 weeks. I went off the light for 6 weeks and went back on a home version for 6 weeks. And they took measurements at each phase of that. So I started in. My wife claims that she's noticed a difference in me within 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
That I was starting to be calmer, a little more patient, a little less agitated. I didn't want to believe it because I thought, well, this is just a placebo effect. I've looked and not found anything out there. There's just nothing out there to help people. But we went through the testing at the end of 6 weeks, and I was significantly improved in all of my emotional and all my cognitive measures. I mean, across the board, it was really significant. And it wasn't just a little bit of change. It was like big time change, where I was very depressed, and the depression went down to almost 0 on their scale. PTSD was off the charts, and that went down to very, very low. Other cognitive measures were just as well. My MRI, the functional connectivity, improved significantly, which means the brain is communicating with its different areas much more efficiently than it was prior to that. So they were excited. I was excited, but then it came 6 weeks off. And so I went off for 6 weeks. And my wife was really, really worried because she got a little version of me back the way I used to be. And she was afraid that if I went off, it would disappear. So I went off, and it disappeared. And it took 3 or 4 weeks, which wasn't unexpected from the researchers, because of CTE, if that's what I was dealing with, it's a progressive neurodegenerative disease. So even though this treatment, this technology stopped it, or it seemed to stop it and improve the expression of that, taking that away, it just came flooding back. And that's what happened. I went back to almost ground 0 at the end of that time. So now we take our measurements again, and it's my functional connectivity was worse. Everything was worse. And so now my wife is really upset, because what if it doesn't come back? So I went on a home version of the near-infrared light, which is the earlier versions of Vielight that they recommended. And after about 6 or 7 weeks, I was retested, and everything came back just as it was before. In fact, a little bit better in several areas.
Thank you so much for listening to the Evolving Wellness Podcast. This podcast is made possible by my sponsors, and one I'd really like to thank is Viva Rays. They have been with me for many years now, and they have fantastic glasses that help you harmonize your light environment. Light and sunlight and blue light, all these terms are being thrown into the mainstream now, which I think is overall good, but there's still a lot of confusion. So you can head to vivarays.com/Sarah if you'd like to check out these glasses. I absolutely love them. But during the day, you will want to stick with these yellow lenses, because the thing that's unique about these is that they allow enough blue light in so that you don't get sleepy and groggy during your workday. You also can put on the orange lenses During those earlier sunsets in the wintertime, you don't get too sleepy, but they allow your body to start winding down. And then the red lenses are fantastic to wear right before bed. So this is the Viva Rays 3-in-1. You can use my code Sarah over there, www.vivarays.com. They are helping to sponsor the show, and they have fantastic harmonizing glasses. Go ahead, check them out. And thanks again for sponsoring today's episode.
So now, here I am. I'm leaving Boston. We're leaving Boston about this time. I've found this technology. I had tried everything prior to that. Ann McKee recommended it. Here's the number one person in CTE in the world, and she didn't recommend hallucinogenics. She didn't recommend oxygen. She didn't recommend any of these other things that people try out, ketamine or whatever. She recommended light. And because of the results that they had had previous with the Gulf War veterans, she recommended it for me, and it worked. And it worked significantly. It was powerful.
Wow.
So, I came from a very abusive childhood. It was very violent, very abusive. And football really, I loved the sport. I had success with it. I found fulfillment with it. It was really hard for me to believe that this sport that brought me a lot of recognition, a lot of satisfaction and joy was slowly killing me, that it had almost killed me and was almost destroying my marriage. And so you can imagine when I found this technology that just flipped everything, really turned everything backwards. My wife said I'm back to my old self, that she has her husband again. That really brought me a lot of satisfaction and felt really, really good, because it was really hard to think that this sport was so destructive to people. It really was that destructive. How could coaches coach players? How could parents put players into this sport? How could people continue? It's like recommending to your son to take up smoking, or to take up hard drugs or something. It's just, if it's that destructive, why are people still playing this? Well, it's because it's such a great sport. And now I've got something that maybe could help it. Maybe this could be the answer. Soap was invented thousands of years ago, right? And in about 1840, a guy discovered that if the physicians washed their hands with soap before they delivered babies, you've heard about this.
Yeah.
They prevent infections, and that's what happened. But even that simple change, something that's been around for so long, that had such an impact in health, it took 10 or 15 years before it was accepted. Something simple. But it was so powerful, and its effects were powerful. And so I thought, I'm gonna do something. So the first thing I did, I went back to Utah and talked with the athletic director at BYU. He was the one that had recommended me for the Hall of Fame at BYU. And I talked to him and I said, and this is back in 2018, and there were articles on CTE every other day, it seemed to be, back in those days, prior to the pandemic. And they were calling for the end of football. They were saying football is going to die. Again, the moral and ethical aspects of playing a sport that could possibly affect your mental trajectory, mental health. And so I talked him into, and this was not a one-time thing. My first meeting with Tom, and he's got 4 Super Bowl rings. He was the athletic director of the year. He's very well recognized, very bright. He had his degree is in biology, so he knew what he was talking about. So he kind of humored me at first, like everybody. They said, well, patted me on the back and said, I'm glad you found something. But everybody finds something, right? Everybody has their little niche that is good. And so we continue to meet, and he said, it sounds too good to be true. And I said, yeah, it does. It does. I know that, but I'm a witness. It is this good. And about the same time, I met with a doctor of a neurology professor at University of Utah. I was referred to Dr. Elizabeth Wild, who was a very well-respected national, internationally known neuropsychologist at the University of Utah. So while I'm meeting with Tom, I also met with Dr. Wild. And she was interested. I shared with her my data. And she had never heard of it. Like most people had never heard of it. You could knock on 100 doors and 99 would never have heard of this. But she was willing to listen, and that's more than most people are willing to do. Mm-hmm. And the reason she was willing to listen is because from her mouth, we have nothing to offer these people. We are very good at diagnosing. We're very good at telling them what's wrong, but we have nothing to offer them. And so she looked at my data and said, that's encouraging. Let's take a look at that. So she started her own level of research. I continued to talk to Tom. Eventually, she got another partner on the faculty that was co-director of the TBI and Concussion Center at the university to look at this in first responders. So they went down and they took this technology, the headsets, down to Las Vegas, which is a very active firefighters, and tried it on them. And they wore it for a while, and then they came back and retested them, and their results were tremendous. Mm-hmm. They decreased their depression, they decreased their PTSD, they increased their cognitive measures, they increased their reaction time, their processing skills. I mean, all these things that you need to be a good firefighter. You need to be a good first responder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they came back after that study and said, hey, you may have something here. And at the same time, I'm talking to Tom, and I'm talking to the head coach, and we've decided to do a study with the football team because, again, CTE was a big subject back then. I'm saying if they find that this is present in college football players, we need to have an answer for it. So we engaged the BYU football team to participate in a season-long study. And that was no easy task. In order, nowadays, where there's such big money involved, coaches are not really very willing to let people interact with their players, distract their players from the goal of winning football games. But he did. We had to convince the athletic director. We had to convince the medical team. We had to convince the head coach. We had to convince the players. If there was a no all along that, it might never have happened. So at the same time, we were starting another study at the University of Utah involving ex-athletes, ex-collision athletes. The BYU study was really groundbreaking. What we found, we did 15 players wore a headset that was kind of a mock headset, a sham device that had light, but it wasn't effective light. It didn't really do anything. And then 15 players wore an active headset that was light. So we watched, we did that. They wore this in the training room. There was high participation with this. They complied with it very well. We took blood samples. We did MRIs. We did full complement of neurocognitive testing. We did a real major workup on them. So after the end of the season, we repeated that, did the same thing. What we found, and it took several years, believe it or not, to analyze all this data because they wanted to get this right. Because if they came out and said, this is their living, they have a reputation that's international, and if they say things that are not true, they could destroy their reputation. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the season, we studied them again, and what we found was really, I wish I had the graph to show you because it was really unbelievable. The people that wore the headsets improved over the sham devices in incredibly almost every measure of cognitive performance, of strength, of processing speed, of reaction time, of memory, of all these cognitive measures. And these are the same age kids. They undergo the same training, the same participation, the same meals pretty much. Everything was exactly the same except the headset. And they improved on every one of those measures over the kids that didn't. One of the measures, obviously, was strength. I mean, from the start of the season to the end of the season, the treated group was stronger than the untreated group. That never happened over the course of a season. They hoped to maintain their strength, but never get stronger. Reaction time was better. Their cognitive processing was better. Everything that made them a better football player improved. Now, as impressive as that was, the real groundbreaking was when we looked at their DTI, which is a way of looking at the MRIs, which looked at inflammation in the brain. It looked at the health of the axons. And what they found was that the players that did not wear an active headset, the sham group, their brains were inundated with the inflammation. And this wasn't previous. This was just the difference between pre and post. Mm-hmm. If I could show you a picture of that, but it's all lit up. The whole brain is full from the front to the back, all through the middle of it.
Wow.
The group that did wear the active treatment, they had a net loss of inflammation. So there was no inflammation, no new inflammation, and yet there was a net loss of inflammation.
Wow.
That's groundbreaking. And quite frankly, people don't believe me when I say it. I can show them the slides that showed this, and many people will still not believe it because it's never been reported.
Yeah.
In addition to that, the sham people had a significant amount of axon repair going on, which means that the axons were damaged through the season. The treated group had zero axon repair response.
Wow.
So based on inflammation and axon health, the treated players had a healthier brain at the end of the season than they did going into the season.
Wow.
In addition to that, that correlated with improved performance. So now we have a device that not only creates a healthier brain, but that brain manifests its healthiness, I guess you could say, in better performance, and that performance might be doing your job. That might be going to school. That might be, anything that you do that requires processing and response speed and memory can be improved with this. Wow. So, like I said, it took a long time to get that data out. We also did blood. We drew blood to look at inflammatory biomarkers and other biomarkers throughout the body. We still don't have that data back yet, but that's coming soon. It's in the Mayo Clinic being analyzed as we speak.
Wow.
But it was significant. And another part of it that we found was right in the center of the brain. It's where all the torsion pressure and everything kind of focuses there. Mm-hmm. And we would expect that to be the area that would be the most affected by football. And that's exactly what we found. With the untreated group, that center of the brain, right where all that pressure takes place, was the most damaged. And in the treated group, that wasn't the case.
Wow.
So, it's a tough way to go because people resist believing things that are so diametrically opposed to what they've known in the past.
Yeah.
And I've known early on that I had to do this research in order to validate what I was saying because people weren't believing it. Now that I've done this, we've had 7 studies over 7 years, and there's consistency across all of the studies. We just finished one with stroke and moderate TBI. And the researchers have been quoted as saying it's disease modifying. It doesn't treat the symptoms only. It actually changes the brain. One other researcher said it seems to just sweep the brain. And these researchers were very, very skeptical when they started. They thought it was snake oil. They thought it was, I can't believe this, woo medicine, It's not pharmacological approach, so it can't be, right? But it is, and it's powerful. And soon all of this, our paper in the Journal of Neurotrauma just came out about 3 months ago. And we've gotten a lot of press with that because it was called groundbreaking in the New York Post, because it is. And it just takes a while for people to understand that and to do that. So now we have a way of treating it. We don't try to prevent it. The pads on the helmets and the big giant helmets that people are wearing don't do anything. They don't protect the brain from rattling around. Mm-mm. So we come up with something that actually treated it. And near-infrared light seems to do the trick.
Wow. I think my audience will be appreciative of this because that's what I have really talked about is health and light for the last 6 years myself, because it's been dramatically helpful for me and a lot of my clients. And I use light therapeutically with people. So I know, having a little bit more of an educated audience, that they will have these questions, I'm guessing. Is there a specific time of day that you have them do the light treatment, and length of time? Because I know with red light therapy, there's mitochondria react differently at different times of day, and then lengths of time. Some people say you can do too much. I've had different researchers on the channel, so I'm just curious of digging into some of that research a little deeper of what that practically looked like when you were doing it with the players.
Yeah. Well, you can go on Amazon and there's 1,000 red light.
Oh yeah.
There, and most of them are just red
junk. Junk. Yeah.
The device that I've always used, and I don't get paid to advertise for this company, but the Vielight is by far the most researched company and devices out there, and not all light is equal.
No. And
so they have very, very stringent manufacturing, and they've got patents in terms of where you place the red light, and so you're not going to get the aspect. The brain changes by laying in a bed or putting light out there. It's specific for that. And they've shown that it does penetrate the skull. It goes through the hair, the skull, it reaches the brain, and they've done real time MRI studies while it's being used, and they can see the changes in the brain lighting up. And so they've had a lot of success with that. The device that I use, that I recommend for football teams and for athletes in general, I recommend it for everybody, is the Vielight device, and it goes on for 20 minutes. It goes off automatically after 20 minutes. I use it in the morning, first thing in the morning. I use it 5 days a week. That's all. There is a possibility of a biphasic response.
Right.
Working so much, but I haven't really noticed that or seen that take place in our research. But it's like everything, exercise. You take a day off once in a while in order to let the body regenerate, and it's the same thing here. For the BYU football, for the firefighters, for the ex-athletes, for the stroke, they all did it 3 days a week, every other day.
Oh, okay.
So still got those great results.
Wow.
I would do 5 days a week now if we're doing it again. We're looking at doing another study, a pilot study with only ex-NFL players, because we've had a lot of success, and the Players Association is very interested in looking at this. So yeah, I don't think you can do too much. I would recommend no more than 5 days a week. That's just my recommendation. This device is a medical quality device. It's not cheap, but it's not just, and it's effective. It's been studied, multiple studies. I think there's like 30 studies that they've looked at, but we've just in the 5 years we've been researching this, we've had like 28 professional presentations and publications in refereed journals, peer-reviewed journals, So this is becoming more accepted. We're probably Harvard and Mass General probably has done as much research second to us. We've done by far the most with athletes in looking at that. So, and we've got a lot more planned because, when I went to school way back when in the 80s, we knew exercise was good for you. But at the same time, we needed to know the duration of exercise, the intensity of exercise, the type of exercise that you do. How often do you do the exercise for the optimal results? And this is the same thing. Into that, we're starting to hone in on the most recommended approaches to this for the most effectiveness, but it works, and that's the important thing. And there's just nothing else out there that works like this.
If you're not new to my work, you already know the importance of sunlight in your daily life. But what if you have to work in an office all day long? How can you offset some of that blue light? Now, the work of Professor Glenn Jeffrey shows that preconditioning your body with red and infrared light before going into a blue lit environment actually helps your mitochondria buffer the stress of that environment. And I would recommend anyone who works in an office or has to be indoors a lot this winter to have a source of red and infrared on their desk with them. That is why I absolutely love this Bond Charge mini red light panel. And I keep it here on my desk while I'm working in my office and recording videos for you guys. And they've given me a discount for all of my listeners. All you have to do is go to the Bond Charge website, which I'll put down in the show notes for you, and use the code Sarah Kleiner for everything on the site. You can get 15% off. But if you want to get this little Bond Charge red light mini panel, this is really my favorite tool for anybody who has to work in an office and has to offset some of this blue light, because let's be realistic. We can't just quit our jobs and move, even though we might want to. So learning how to live in the modern world and mitigate it is going to be extremely helpful. And the research is there to show that red and infrared light is immensely helpful if you're in a blue lit environment. Head to bondcharge.com and check out the mini red light panel. Use the code Sarah Kleiner, all one word, to save 15% off. There will be a link down in the show notes.
Yeah. I think the last time I spoke with Peter might have been in 2023 when we did a podcast together. And so there's been so much that's come out since then. But I don't recall if there was the research, Dr. Glenn Jeffrey's research. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He does a lot with the red and the infrared. He says that mitochondria in the eye, which is in the retina, there's a huge concentration of mitochondria. They are more responsive in the morning before 11 a.m. So I don't know if you've kind of separated out times, or if you just tell them in the study, look, you just got to do it sometime today. Because he's got that research, it's more on the retina, but I wonder if how strict that is and how that comes across in the research that you guys have done.
Yeah, we really haven't looked at that. We recommend doing it in the morning. It's easy. Some people are very responsive to the gamma level of light. And so if they do it at night, my wife has hard time sleeping with that, because it makes you more alert and such. And so we just recommend in the morning or early afternoon to do this. Something that you can do on a regular basis. Yeah. It's so easy. It's 20 minutes. In the ideal situation, you just sit there for 20 minutes and ponder and just meditate. But I read and I do other things while I'm doing that, and it seems to be very effective. Yeah. I've come a long ways, and I'm still improving. Believe it or not, the change is very gradual. It's like a long, slow sunrise where it's dark, dark, dark. And, there's a little bit of light there, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up and it's daytime, and it's light and it's bright and it's good. So there's a lot of mechanisms involved. Mitochondria is the one that people focus on, but that's not the only.
That's only part of it, yeah.
Only part of it. And there's Harvard published a paper with light channels in the brain, and I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in the brain, but what we know right now is that this works. This is no longer does it work? Is it hyperbolic? No, it's just as good as we make it out to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the research on light is so exciting, and I think we know biochemistry can really only get us so far, and I think people experience that every single day. And when it comes to something like a brain injury and CTE, there's huge limitations if you're just going to go that pharmacological route. So
it doesn't work. I mean, there's nothing out there that works. I mean, you got to digest it. You got to cross the blood-brain barrier. There's just stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
And there's a big push, or has been a big push for many years, to try to diagnose CTE in the living. And they haven't got there yet. They say that they're getting close, but really, is that what we want? Because they found CTE in high school players. They found CTE in college players. They found a high percentage in college and professional. It's in it's in boxers. You're going to find stuff in soccer players. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just there. And the chances are really high that it's there in everybody that has played a collision type sport for an extended period of time. And so what is the conclusion if we find this is present in the living? Are they going to be able to continue to play? Or is insurance going to cover it?
Right.
If they've got the beginnings of this neurodegenerative disease, I mean, it would do more destruction than it would, I think, because we found that this improves the health of the brain. Mm-hmm. And along with that, it improves the performance of the athlete. I'm beside myself to think why a coach or a parent or an owner or a team physician, after they research it for themselves to get their own mind around this, that why they wouldn't want to do this. I mean, it's so easy and it's so effective that it's almost criminal to not do it. Yeah.
Especially on, the sports, because we've got some cousins, we have triplets, and they are all in sports, my husband's brother. And they're so big into soccer, traveling to, different states to play these tournaments, and it'll take up their whole weekend. And it's I didn't realize what a big thing it was until I saw that they're just a huge soccer family. They love it. And I think they went to London to watch some soccer tournament a year ago. So, I just think of all these young people coming up and the potential implications of, how a child starting out 5, 6, some of them are going as young as 3 years old. What kind of implications will these kids have in learning and relationships in school and just functionality through life if they're getting these head injuries, essentially?
And it doesn't even have to be a head injury. It just has to be multiple changes in the momentum of the brain, changing directions and everything.
So just starting and running and
for it to be labeled or diagnosed a brain injury, it has to be along this continuum of brain injury to the point where it's diagnosable. And once you can diagnose it, they call that a concussion. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of preliminary impacts of that brain, of that rattling around in the skull that happens over and over and over again that never get diagnosed as a concussion. It never gets to the point where there's signs and symptoms of it. But it builds. And we've shown that in the soccer players at such a young age. They've got this artifact that shouldn't be there, and that could be the precursor for problems. And I'm not saying they will get a full-blown CTE problem later in life, but that's certainly, based on what we've found, going to change the trajectory of their cognitive and mental health development. Mm-hmm. We've gotten people on this that are very healthy, they don't have any symptoms, and yet they still improve, because it's like taking a healthy person that's never lifted weights and put him in the gym, and he's going to get better, even though he didn't have anything wrong with him. This is a healthy part of the lifestyle. Should be for everybody. It should be in every house in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I know we've got a device, so I know if my husband's trying to get my 3-year-old into soccer, I don't think we can get a 3-year-old to wear the device, but maybe as he gets a little bit older, it's something we can bribe him to do. But I mean,
that's the key. I mean, they've shown some good results in autism, but getting them to wear it is a challenge.
Yeah. That's why we got it. Was Peter sent it for my daughter because she had a pretty significant head injury and a fall that resulted in an ICU stay. And so Peter had one sent to me, and she was doing really well wearing it. We kind of got out of the habit of it. So now I'm like, I need to go get it. I need to go charge it up, get her back on there.
Eating and sleeping. It's just, you do that for your body. You do this for your brain.
Yeah. I think we're at that point. And because, I mean, she's nonverbal autistic. And so it's hard to get her to do much. But when we were making her be compliant, I mean, she would sit there and do it. And you could almost just see her just kind of relax and settle down when we'd put it on her. But we got away from it. You know, it's one of those things that you just have to keep up with. But I'm very inspired now after this conversation to go get it.
I've worn it for 7 years. And
wow.
I saw tremendous change early on when I was so low. But even over the past several years, it's not like I feel different day to day. But over the course, I'll realize that my feelings are just better. They're just more patient, they're more kinder, there's more love in my mind. I mean, it causes the brain to work the way it's supposed to work. And I'll never stop using it. I'll wear it till they'll probably bury me with it.
And for anybody who's listening, this issue with athletes having the CTE is pretty serious. And you've alluded to it a few times, but you really have to do kind of an autopsy to confirm it, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they can look at the signs and symptoms and say you probably got it. Look at your background, look at your history. I mean, with the NFL, the early on study, 95% of them had CTE.
Wow.
The brains that were analyzed. And people say that was a biased sample, and maybe so, but it's just, the brain is a very delicate organ, and you cannot stop it from banging against the insides of the skull if you're active. And if it does that enough, it's going to react to it, and it's going to get damaged, and you're going to suffer for it. And it may be a low-level suffer that you don't really know. I look back at pictures, and I was never smiling.
Wow.
For years and years. There's an effect that it has on your personality that is not positive. And after wearing this for so long, and I will continue to wear it, I've changed. I've become a better person. And I don't see any reason from all of the people that we've studied and looked at why people wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Even healthy.
I was doing it for a while myself, and I was getting my husband to do it as well. But I'm going to have to put the hammer.
Yeah.
I'm going to make him listen to this episode even before I release it to the public. So get him back on it too. Because he played a lot of sports. He played basketball. He went to Georgia Tech, and he's huge into sports. You know, it's a big part. It was a big part of his life growing up. And I know it's really important to him that our son does sports, but I think there's that downside. I think it's so positive, like you mentioned, having an abusive childhood, having that place in your home where you didn't feel so good, and then really putting yourself into sports. And I think it's so positive for children and young adults, teenagers, period, to have that outlet and to have that thing where they feel they're accomplishing something. But this downside to it is scary, when you really look at it and what you've been through and what so many have been through. So do you think a teenager, a child that will tolerate it, that will sit there, that is actively playing sports, could use this device regularly while they're playing to potentially offset issues that might arise?
They could and they should.
Mm-hmm.
There's a guy down in Florida that works with a lot of Major League Baseball players that recommends it and makes sure they use it. It's just starting to become more well accepted. There's one of the world's top basketball players in the NBA orders it for him and his family. One of the best tennis players that's ever played orders it for him and his family.
Wow.
Several NFL players are starting to use it. We're working with Hall of Fame football players that are part of our research. It's just, there's no reason, if you eat healthy, if you do exercise, if you do the things that you want to do, you're going to use this. Mm-hmm. We take supplements that may not do anything. It just makes our urine expensive. Or we will do all sorts of things to try to get that 3% or whatever it is. Yet here is a primary device that works directly on the brain. It doesn't have to go through the digestive process or in the blood and try to get there for a small fraction of it to do anything. Here's something that works, and it's worth your time. You're not wasting your time, and it will affect your lifestyle. It will affect your progress. It'll affect your success in almost everything. And I'm not a salesman for this company, but I'm telling you, it saved my life, literally.
Wow.
And my marriage, and I can't say enough about it. And and I've got a responsibility with a doctor, PhD. I've got a responsibility to not blow smoke, and it's been a long time. It's been 7 years that I've been trying to push this, and we've done a lot of research, and people are just starting to listen. They're just starting to say, yeah, okay, I'll take a look at this. We met at the White House with the Maha people. Doesn't care about your politics, but they are interested in other mechanisms for health. Mm-hmm. And we have it in about 3 VA hospitals, and they're committed to getting it into all 175 VA hospitals.
Yeah, those guys really struggle the worst, honestly.
Struggle a lot.
Yeah.
And it's been effective. We've had several veterans in our study, and we're just starting a large scale from a grant from the DoD, Department of Defense, to look at veterans and first responders on a better. Firefighters, they have more divorce. They die more from suicide than they do from fires.
Yeah.
And these firefighters that we treated with this, they didn't give them back. They refused to give. They had such an effective. They started to sleep again for the first time.
Now with firefighters, I thought, is that more the circadian disruption that some of them get, maybe, of having to do these long, 48-hour, 72-hour shifts, or is it are there physical things being a firefighter that are happening, having to climb and do all the things that they do? Like, I'm curious about the mechanism.
All of it is part of it, so to speak. A lot of firefighters come from athletic backgrounds. A lot of them have military backgrounds. They had a high level of PTSD. You come upon an accident, it affects people.
Oh yeah.
They had lots of divorce. They had a couple of guys said, "Oh, I passed my captain's exam for the first time." After doing this. So it just makes everything you do work better. And I know it sounds simplistic, and people want the biology or biochemistry involved. Most people don't know how a cell phone can call somebody around the world, but they still use it because it's effective.
Right.
This is effective, and this thing, this is the cheat code for a performance enhancing drug.
Yeah.
It's not a drug, and it's healthy, and it makes everything better.
Yeah. And then people will say that are ignorant about light and health and these sorts of things of just go outside, just get the near infrared from the sunlight. Is not the same thing. This is a concentrated therapeutic dose. So it would really be I think, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, impossible to replicate this by simply going outdoors, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be me? I love the sun. I love going outside.
Yeah.
So well, it's not the same thing. And you can't even, it's not even in the same ballpark.
No.
But when you look at the idea that this improves reflexes, reaction time, it improves processing speed, it improves the way the functional connectivity of the brain works so that signals aren't getting blocked one way and they have to go on all these detours. It's just a direct route. What sport wouldn't benefit from this? It doesn't have to be just sports that damage the brain.
Right.
It's any kind of sport that you have to process, that you have to react, that you have to perform a certain task. You're going to do it better, faster, more effectively. You'll be a better student, better.
Yeah,
parent.
I mean, I'm just thinking, even my perimenopause, menopause ladies who are starting to get the brain fog and the issues that start happening when hormones really start fluctuating at that stage of life. I think this could be even beneficial for them to support the brain in that process of that transition. I'm just guessing here.
No, you're looking at millions and tens of millions of people that would fit into the potential market for this. And when you look at the brain and all the diseases and the mental health and the neurodegenerative diseases and how we age and all of the issues that we deal with, if I personally came up and found something that cured a cancer, I would be all over the front page. I would be on news channels. Well, we found something that's probably even more effective on a scale of worldwide issues related to brain activity and mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in light. I was struggling with trying to get pregnant later in life with my son, he's 3.5 now, and used infrared light on my belly, just on the ovaries. And a few months of that and changing, different lifestyle changes, circadian changes, going outside more, getting more vitamin D from sunlight, was able to get pregnant after failed fertility treatments, miscarriages, all of that. And so that was the turning point for me, where I started saying, not one fertility doctor, not one doctor ever recommended or even brought up the possibility of using a therapeutic light device. Not one from Amazon, one that's actually has the therapeutic wavelengths. No one did that. And I, to this day, I have a good friend of mine going through that fertility process. Not one of the doctors has said one thing about it. And so I think this information on light is just far reaching, but this part with the brain is so significant, because if you can't think right, if you're depressed, I mean, you've been there, there's really a low quality of life,
Big time. Yeah. And I've run into that too. If they hadn't heard about it, if they weren't aware of it, how can it be valid? Right. And that's what happens. You can show them the research, you can show them the data, you can show them the publications, and they'll say, well, it's kind of new, we'll wait and see. And so they would rather put pads on the helmets that do absolutely nothing except look stupid, and say that we're doing something. Well, right. Really not. No. It's like putting a filter on a cigarette and saying, hey, it's safe now. It does nothing. In fact, it's probably worse, because it makes them think that they can hit and escape the problems of repetitive head acceleration events. And that's what we're dealing with. And it's a long haul.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Well, I'm super excited to share that. Actually, like I said, I'm going to make my husband listen to this before it goes live. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you about that you think would be really important for anybody listening to know when it comes to this topic or subject, or just anything at all?
I think we've covered it all. I think if I go on anymore, people will start to probably discount what I say, because I do get excited about this. I swore that I found something that saved my life, and my goal is to get it on the heads of every single collision sport person out there. I love baseball. If I was a baseball player, I would be all over this. Reaction time and grip strength and processing speed is the difference between a good, average, or poor baseball player. So regardless of the sport, I would use it. If I wanted to be the best student I could be, I would use it. If I wanted to be well, if I wanted to be healthy, I would use it rather than taking supplements, because most of those don't work. This works.
Yeah. There's supplements are such a nuanced topic, and the ones that maybe have all these promises behind them may not work for your particular terrain or your genetic predispositions. There's just so many layers to all these things. And light is something that I know that we, in the beginning, God said, let there be light. That's basic beginner. So that's how I see it when it comes to looking at side effects and effectiveness and what we were given. So I love that.
That's perfect.
Wonderful. Well, if people want to support your research or follow a lot of the work that you're doing, is there a place for that? Or
we always are looking for donations for our research.
I'm sure
our researchers have volunteered hundreds of hours on this. We've been able to raise a good amount of money, but research is expensive, and we're changing the world. So you can give my contact information.
Okay.
Feel free to.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for your time today. This has really been wonderful, and I'm super excited to share it.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah.